Hello, this is emergency coronavirus correlation. I'm not a doctor. It is reported that and demonstrated that and how Italy had, for example, all kinds of unfathomable problems with the coronavirus, people dying, and just reactions to things that are unnatural. For example, in which is also recorded, originally and still the perfect world having been forsaken, it was also simultaneously self-valued having been forsaken. And that also is set up by a breaching method to exploit that. So we must understand how what led up to Marbury versus Madison and James Madison's plan, how it was what caused the Boston Tea Party, and how people are making complicated what is only extensive. And it is not extensive if you say stay with what is true always, not exceptions, as exceptions, which is correlation nature is. Correlation nature is an identity of truths and of fact treatment natures that can't deny that, and has obligated to use how the perfect world is forsaken as evidences. See, but we can't. So they can't do that. So they have to offensively pretend and self-value all the reasons. Actually, how the perfect world was forsaken, how they were juxtaposed, are juxtaposed. All kinds of other fact treatment nature, motivations, natures, needs, interests. So there's a predicate X delivery system method. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not police form, not criminal. I'm not a judge, but we have criminal foreign influence readings of statutes and uses of them. For example, CNN did good reporting. All these news people do good and bad because they're individually grouped and together. Defenses of identity ground locations. Everyone speaking through others where that is involved with sequence shifts. Where that is involved with where interbranch have been fabricating audio and video. So you see another video I'm going to put up before or after this one. I'm sitting in the same space. And I'm speaking to the judges of the television stations like Fox News and CNN. Their sources are recorded having been involved leading up to the World Trade Center and since, as their roles with identity thefts and frauds, for example, tied to fabricated evidence is simultaneously tied to uses of all identity ground locations, like even private policing and companies with the schools. So then they get the sense and sensibilities of everyone, preventing people short words while they're fabricating audio and video rolls on off their locations because they have to add lie progressions. They have been doing that in cases. They have been lying about what is actually recorded in cases. So we have vetting identities, what they call the intelligence community, associated with all the news, national and foreign. And that remotely used contained counter where they have the CNN and they have Fox News distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously covering other nations because of how they have it, markets and economy, voices and jobs, natures of industries, as victims told to speak anyway. See, but they were also told to follow mandated law. And see, that's why it's relevant to have how the interbranch police forms have collusion with investigators, and identities of the agencies and of the branches themselves, recorded in collusion with what is to all locations, areas, and states, overt criminal enterprises, and private ones also maintained needed to hide roles with the same discorrelation, self-value, with the same identity theft, frauds, sequence shifts, self-value, as victims, only allowed to be victim predators, or worse. And with opinions and conviction natures. And this is where everyone is good or bad. This is also about where good people are evil. For example, where they are, they're also offensively pretending people are saying that other people are evil. I'm speaking about specific acts, forging names, switching names, fabricating audio and video. I'm using people's for regular things. These are people that have been making conspiracy theories against regular citizens and the interbranch, per their collusion with that which keeps them, that entire sophistication used remotely as it was before the World Trade Center. There are Hartford courts and our New Britain Superior Court that was involved with West Hartford and New Britain investigations and investigators that were fabricating audio and video off interbranch locations per their roles with relevant on-off interbranch locations. Also, like they used for the depositions leading up to a 2006 district court case with the people leading up to the World Trade Center further involved, and with the investigators of it. So has the military already motivated to it, also recorded how? Because they had already, that's how they use the leaders of every country remotely, because they use all identity ground location stewards remotely, all identity ground roles with our fact sheet nature, other people's names, where they have the mayors and their family members. They have them as identities of volume, as value as nature, / nature as value, as criminal insidious nature. Needed to hide lie progressions already having been used remotely. So, for example, then they need them to pretend that's personal when you say that. When these are the people I've been asking, they also use the crime method of pretending people are uncooperative with the police. If they after they already attach me to fake, trying to make a police report with an older Mendez brother involved with identity thefts and frauds. Never had a conversation with my life. Never tried to go into the Wethersfield Police Department to make a police report on my life, because since I was a kid, they were recorded a whole bunch of ways threatening me and others not to say anything about their roles, fabricating audio and video with other police forms and with other branches, and with overt criminal enterprise juxtaposed with their sources and with their, the people involved with their evidences, narratives. So they have a lot of illusions that are predicate acts oriented, and so they tell people to pretend people make conspiracy theories when they're interbranch forging names and switching names as roles. That's evidence. See, they're preventing quality evidences while they are simultaneously fabricating audio and video, and have been doing that, and with physical delusions with the area's worst criminals, and railroading of innocent people roles. Now, this is also where and how the people that run the prisons tied to them, on off the state judicial branch offices, they were also recorded involved with this other method of predicate acts delivery and corrupts, and as methods of motivations, natures, needs, interests through time, kept as styles of premises treatments, of fact treatment, nature, quality, as criminal insidiousness. I'm not a lawyer, but how the lawyers are also evidence in having been and being in collusion with opinions and convictions that can't defend themselves without self-value, remotely used evidence of racketeering natures as the only natures allowed to speak for the law on or off interbranch locations, where they would fabricate audio and video value, which is simultaneously confessed when we hear about roles with Jim Crow, even, that leave out that breaching method, let alone slavery. That when we hear opinions and convictions regarding what caused slavery, that leaves out that breaching method. You have physical delusions mixed. You have self-value, criminal, foreign influence, premises treatment, sequence treatments, finite, active, progressive, simultaneously, identity treatments. That's why we have problems today. And now roles with that as fact treatment nature for other motivations, nature, interests, real. They also have to pretend other. Her needs of positive and negative treatment simultaneously as identity. Identity is a simultaneous relationship to what is positive and negative. This is where and how we are value / value progression. And anything we could invent or make up. And so we have to understand how the breaching method, forced only capable of being afforded individually, grouped, or or together, the people stacking in New York City, for example, in cities throughout the world. But to understand that, you have to follow up how American history is actually recorded with true sequence first. And that's in relationship to how James Madison And that plan caused the Boston Tea Party and the American Revolution and the phenomenon of George Washington, our first president. See, but they didn't have free speech. So until we can talk about how James Madison didn't have free speech and everyone was pretending other than, we can't address how that was self-valued roles with that, and self-valued roles with defenses of that, increasingly, because nature continues to demonstrate negative value, nature progressions, action, nature. So what is the progressive value of having people stack people? People aren't going to agree on the causes of it because they were told fake American history. They were told to blame it on our founding parents, for example. So they take collusion with that which is already having perfected exploitation of all these motivations, natures, needs, interests, to blame naive AB logic, naive qualities of positive as criminal insidiousness and now negative treatments, and collusion, like counters to bullying, are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved also with all these natures of uses of medical databases to fabricate audio and video, attach people to fake locations, fake ties to other people, including people involved with drugs, because of how they have foreign and domestic nations involved with each other as policing and needing to counter things here or there that are relevant to needing to have what is actually recorded here and there. We have location shared. So they have locations in West Hartford and Hartford that are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved with the people involved with the identity thefts against me that I don't know at all. And ones I only know because they make confessions to me as strangers. So that's relevant to uses of everybody. Per what was associated with their treatments of schools and going back to schools and every issue before us. Note how so in other words, we have to address how the economy originally instilled was designed to keep any individual, any group, and everyone all together, incapable of affording anything other but a shared identity, as nations shared to and as identities, as fact-cheating nature that can't defend that and counter would exploited that since before their founding parents, before America's founding parents. Already entrenched was a breaching method that had roles even with slavery, sickly distinctly with color. It was the slavery against everyone, fact-cheating nature laws, what anyone could even say outside of monitored database positions. So they had the fact-cheating nature, so they had the value/value progression. What is the value/value progression of people who have to walk to the top of a people stacking building? So even though it wasn't the fault of anyone, even though no one could fathom other, because it's tied with economic positions, where hundreds of nations, A1 through Z, including our own, they pretend they have integrity. The only integrity they have was the Native Americans fighting for the native system of nature, and our founders through James Madison's plan. All the rest is Nave still controlled, breaching screens, breaching tools, breaching weapons, worse. It's all right, they have physical delusions, and like, for example, when they want to bring up jobs, industries, companies, because they're bringing up identity of the ground locations, they're leaving that out. And where and how they have the fact-cheating nature people of everyone involved with the investigators, investigations of that, criminally foreign influenced. You will see this. So the whole bunch of people I don't know at all, and people that I only know barely, in the only context I know them, and they couldn't be honest about. So they have to offensively pretend other, while simultaneously preventing mandated law and stacking more and more audio and video, so they control the line of questioning, because they have been setting up exceptions through time, which is why and how I know this, because there are also connections between the people that I only know with confessions to me, tied to people with sequence shifts. In other words, correlation reveals this. So there is a domain family of involved with interbranch police forms and private ones involved with friends of theirs. I don't know them. I never had a conversation with them. Any context where they would be able to pretend other. With shows there was no conversation, and it was engineered, involved with them since before that, and with that and further having been exploited. These are people involved leading up to the World Trade Center, and in the World Trade Center attack, where Fox Connecticut News and people on and off the buildings next to them, and on and off the building, that's in Hartford, Connecticut, are involved with people with predicate acts on my street through time, with interbranch family members associated with it, though. Also with overt criminal enterprises and the witness protection program, as people involved with a child school that has ties to Sandy Hook in Connecticut and other intercity schools, and roles with predicate acts on and off Central Connecticut State University that also involve where and how judges and prosecutors and their family members are involved with the individuals and the sources of those investigations, in fabricating audio and video, attaching little kids and their family members and students of all ages to fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people. And so this, for example, exploits here and there where we have to be knaves to ensure the security of our kids, where they share a world campus system, where and how the republics and its campus intercampuses and intra-campuses system was revealed by scientists before they became criminally foreign influenced. So we have proofs of this, but we have to have things like that. We have to be able to have how the interbranch was also using investigators, and vetting identities to pretend to perceive things attached to what is actually recorded, while they're actually also fabricating audio and video, people to fake locations on and off the Farmington Avenue locations where the Harriet Beecher Stowe / Mark Twain house is. And there's a river they put underground there. One might be related to because they have all kinds of agencies and police forms overtly with the ones that's in Hartford, Connecticut. That's also where these are people involved with identity thefts and frauds and breaching screens, pretending other, where and how the overt criminal and seditious natures of positive treatments and negative treatments are recorded evidence simultaneously, where there is a simultaneous identity of value / value progression that leads to science of Anthony Watt. And this only feels like game / that's the ancient gaming system, but this is evolution science, which works with identity of the ground. In ways, what speaks, there is a value of what is going to be the progressive value of having people live in people stack, tactically denatured relationships to nature. See, now admitting this, we could tap into what is stronger than all things at once, including all through material things of space, outer space, and atmospheric space. See, Earth's distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to the rest of space nature is its distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to one identity's identity of relationship to itself. Its identity is increasing identity of volume. It's as value, inseparable from all other identities of volume. Its identity of relationship to itself is also only increasing, so it is invisible but still discernible. For example, with the sequence true, the order of the finite, the order of what is active, the order of what is progressive, the order of identity, and its semi-nature relationship as individual groups and together are semi-nature relationship to a complete identity of value / value progression that wasn't invented. And see, it's all right, it's true, you could say things that are true, So in other words, we have scientists and we have natures of doctors. We have to have experts to be able to vet what is real and what is not, especially when it comes to medical things. See, but that is being used to hide the on-off interbranch locations, on-off campuses, on-off sciences, on-off private database relationships simultaneously, on-off overt criminal enterprises simultaneously, per what keeps them needing to hide the same finite, active, and progressive life and uses of identities with that, of names, of, so we have styles of sequence shifting natures. We have styles of criminal and seditious natured self-value. And so one of the ways they pretend not to realize that and they breaching screen this is by pretending to be about inclusion and by pretending to be about, for example, the proofs of it is pretending to be about inclusion while simultaneously preventing a quality of fact treatment nature to address what is actually recorded, the predicate auxiliary system method that forced to be enforced to be self-value, rolls with a breaching employee. Identity of the ground, locations, all. Identity of the ground, areas and states, all. Identity of the ground, sciences, further, all. Identity of the ground, database relationships, private and other, all. Overt criminal enterprises, all. Hundreds of nations shared here and there with in relationship to this, all juxtaposed. Manifest as qualities of sophistication as that need to, thank God they're not that person. As qualities of positive and negative treatment simultaneously, as qualities of identity treatment that can't defend that and afford. Discern what James Madison left for us to use for as correlations means. One way redeems is native pure. That's why, there is value in having the name of the leader of our locations, areas, and states as chief at the same time as president, even though the native republic is recorded self-value, criminally foreign influence, delusions wrought, individually grouped in together. So many ways we don't have anyone to defend us when there are people saying wrong things on the internet that involve the people that experts that are supposed to ensure that people that aren't saying wrong things and making harm that way, but they're doing other, and they have been doing other. So we have to deal with the roles with sequence shifts, and there is a Yagman family also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the domain family, with predicate acts on off campuses, also with private school kids, in collusion with where they spread lies through the people and the men and women as little kids who have conjunctions to Washington D.C. and to the Pentagon, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, and to the World Trade Center, and to the Ninth Circuit Court right next to it, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. There are people involved with sequence shifts in that court and in other courts that in that court proven post-dated documents that had been delivered on time and time-stamped. That was proven after the World Trade Center, right before the World Trade Center attack. They had presented the panel of judges from inside the court papers that had been time-stamped later to appear as if they'd been handed in late to the panel of judges. And then the World Trade Center attack happened. And since before that, there were already Hartford and New Britain courts involved with other courts involved with that, and federal criminals in cases where a whole bunch of foreign and domestic had collusion with the body dumping spots and murderers, per other natures of evidence, racketeering, lie progression cover-ups, identity thefts, and frauds roles. So we have to address how it is evidence of how the originally still self-value were identity thefts and frauds roles, not just against black people. It's easiest to discern there, but it was against everyone. So it's easiest to hide it there because it was set up for that. Everyone having blamed the real causes for fake science, fake correlation regarding such things, such progressive values that are manifest, and how they really got there. Also that's like some of the best infrastructure in America employed to and as a tool of roles with where and how the fact-treating nature of humanity is in the semi-ancient trap set up as an identity of ground, identity of relationship to itself, that the proverbial devil, the breaching method, the predicate auxiliary system method knew. And everyone would have to self-value, blamed on other things other than selves. So it is also recorded how the people private tied to the interbranch used remotely a whole bunch of other nations, keeping this the outcome. And they're also exploiting methods where they're using the campuses. So then they can't, then they'll endanger our students. So they self-value roles with that worse than torture method involved with the quality of fact-treating nature we have to bring to address slavery. And if people want to make opinions, convictions other, it simultaneously requires defenses, that their defenses of premises treatments, of sequence treatments, identity treatments, that they can't defend without self-valuing sequence shifts, without self-valuing recorded there for them, actually recorded, vertical and horizontal illusions stacked into databases, and how. So they make types of experts that are forced to react to certain things, and they have everyone's family members also involved with those things, and they have that where all identities of the law, good people, they're measured how their inclusion with the lie progressions, with the interbranch kept methods of hiding with the private people tied to them after they did crimes and cases. Because in other words, if you entertained what they entertained with Jim Crow laws, you did crimes and cases against all those fake sides, forced by the predicate auxiliary system method, forced to exploit roles with people forsaking the short words as needed by how and why we are individual grouped and together, finite, active, and progressive, for example, what is manifest is one identity of relationship to itself and the value of that, those three values increasing so it is invisible but still discernible. It is 1/3/5 identity /s/IES of conjunction to all parts of the English grammar, to all parts of the English alphabet itself, where and how each letter spells out a word and each word spells out a value. So to keep this obfuscated, they engineered what unfolded as modern nations, treatments and uses of words like facts, truths, evidence, as sequence shifting styles, and natures as value, as identity. And that's what is our species identity of volume /S, individual grouped and together. So it is most probable that this is where and how the cell nucleus, the cell body, and the cell wall evolved the way they did, /do. And with a positive or negative relationship to its system. However, forbid quality of sequence with short words, quality of revelations from that, quality of finite truths, revelations from that, quality of active truths, revelations from that, quality of progressive truths, revelations from that. What is the progressive value of that people stacking? What really is the problem with the people on and off the campuses? See, a whole bunch of nations at once have mental diagnosis of people of their citizens and uses of laws and stuff they agreed to with that. A whole bunch of nations like Russia and America, they have rules together with people that after the World Trade Center attack, with investigators of it, that were involved with the courts and with former director of the FBI in his personal defendant capacities, also involved with other police forms and judges and police people, investigators that were also fabricating audio and video. And where they weren't doing that, they were attaching that to that. And those are the people that, with locations that were confessed, recorded, and demonstrated involved with Debbie Gold. And people, there's a Chris Cullen, I don't know Chris Cullen, I don't know his family, but he's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved with people, with courts, judges, and prosecutors, with uses of real estate companies and you know, business transactions to hide their sequence shifts and their roles with further natures of organized crime, with people even on the child offender registry that have roles with identity thefts and frauds with courts, judges, and prosecutors, and the people that associate with the courts and their family members. Same thing with the police. And these are people also that are recorded how kept needing to decide crimes with overt predicate acts, mail crime rules, wire crime rules, fake conversation, falsified police report rules, fabricating audio and video rules, covering that up rules, and styles and methods recorded. See, these are evidences, but we don't have mandated law followed. We have interbranch forging names, switching names. They pretend that, you know, so we have whether then they pretend they're directed to tell people that they don't know what the other officers did, and then they separate subjects, and they just fabricate more audio and video, and they just put it people to fake, even fabricating me into audio and video conversation with a Mendez police, one of the brothers on a Weathersfield Police Department. Never had a conversation with him in my life. And these are people involved with where people speak through others, where we have foreign and domestic medical families and nurses and their family members involved also with the overt criminal enterprises and the interbranch, you know, through time. So that's their motivations. So then they're pretending I'm saying bad things about people. These are people that had investigators I don't know at all. They're preventing me free speech because they already have, these are people that have roles with all kinds of predicate acts against each age of fact nature as victims, but as victim predator roles. Even with the overt criminal enterprises recorded how kept needing to hide the same live aggressions with them, including the people that are involved and how they're involved with the programs with that on off Trinity College. The houses on Zion Street involved with identity theft, frauds, with predicate acts with intercities campuses that are relevant to, that are simultaneously roles with falsified police reports and illusions and narratives that are also in collusion with that which is foreign involved with this. So I had no communications with anyone at Passig in a couple of locations. Like there are people in the past associated with that confessed and recorded. A Perone family is involved with people with police forms and with and male and female judges and prosecutors that are involved with falsified police reports, identity thefts, and frauds. They make and they set up fake evidences to make it look like there was like, and so then they say, oh, you lied because there's a picture of you here with them at a park. In other words, that was involved, recorded, confessed, demonstrated. Those are people already involved with investigations, investigators, and vetting identities, involved with predicate acts against me and other kids, and identity thefts. I don't know Tom Perone and Danielle Perone, and they're also involved with predicate acts with WFSB, and they're recorded, demonstrated, confessed, and confirmed. How they played softball, the different competing networks, and/or fake competition networks. Like, for example, in relationship to the distinct nature of how CNN deals with foreign. This is foreign where and how. We are individual grouped in species identity of volumes. And the foreign and the American are in collusion with words, and they're screening it by pretending to be about things like democracy as criminal and seditious natures. Where slavery is a topic, fake democracy is a topic simultaneously increasingly of value. Where and how mandated laws prevented outside of courts. Where and how sane judgment is presented outside of courts, but the court's collusion with that predicate X delivery system method entrenched here since before our founding parents. Since before all sequence treatments, complete possession of the order of the finite, of America's foundation, of its active, progressive foundation and its identity of relationship to that which is native pure, which is only increasing. And while it is only increasing, the value of truth about the past is only increasing. And that is increasingly self-valued, being and having been denied because of the natures of industries, being and having been employed to all identity of the ground, locations, areas, states, private database relationships, other database relationships, overt criminal enterprise, private, and interbranch ones, and intersciences further, and intercampuses of each age and nature further, and uses of homeschool, all exception and exception nature, because where each nature, age and nature of correlation nature, each standing position of it was, is, being and having been self-valued, worse than just hurt, tricked, persuaded, to blame, discorrelation on other things other than selves, while glorifying people like criminal and seditious natures of positive treatments, of negative treatments, of each age of fact treatment nature. Victim predators who want to do a job that you can't do that job and be able to be anything other than a criminal and seditious nature. You can't react to what happens between the people because we still have originally they had collusion, not just because they're not just legitimate collusion where they have to have undercover positions, plainclothes officers and you know people to ask questions to and that are charged with not lying. The whole process was lying. Those people are involved with the vertical and horizontal database identity theft frauds roles. And uses of their lie progressions tied to that and their sequence shift roles. So there's a Debbie Gold who sought me out 2 times to record, confess, and demonstrated. There was also 5 times because the first time she didn't. It was about a dreidel, and so these are also religious locations. And one religious location used to be a born-again Christian church, but now it's a different kind. I believe it's a Baptist. But see, the identity of the ground location itself is being exploited for how inter-military, inter-service, inter-branch, inter-private tied to them, inter-overt criminal enterprises, inter-schools, inter-campuses are kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, lie progressions. It is manifest, however, one's naive, fact-cheating nature. So there are investigations, and vetting identities involved with cocaine with little kids. When I was a kid, they were involved with predicate acts with falsified police reports, identity theft frauds, abuses of a Kyle Gill. I don't know if this is his real name. That Rick Faglione. I also barely know, like a handful of times, associated with Tim O'Brien, Andrew O'Brien, recorded, confessed, demonstrated them involved with people that I didn't have classes with in grammar school, who were attaching me to fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake communications with other people. And now those people, as adults, I found them involved doing that with kids, including with people on the Child Defender Registry, and with officers with the Wethersfield Police Department and private companies associated with the policing of the schools, involve fabricating audio and video on and off campuses, and interbranch judges and prosecutors spreading lies through their kids and to the other family members. Now they've been doing this through time. There's also Joe Aiello recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with predicate acts against me and my family, and with violence, where they use little punk kids and people like that, where they have Facebook involved with federal crimes with kids and people on the child offender registry that are also recorded and confessed and demonstrated involved with predicate acts with the Aiello family on and off Hartford campuses, and on and off fire departments, and on and off Griswold Street, with houses on the corners of Griswold Street also recorded, confessed, demonstrated. I don't know them. They had my name used with them criminally, per confessions involved, and per uses of confessions, which is relevant. So the Facebook page of Wethersfield Police Department is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with them stacking roles with off campuses and with interbranch fabricating audio and video into databases while that is being and having been going on the campuses. How they affect this by controlling how they make people ask questions to kids is relevant to where and how also recorded is how they have been using investigators, and vetting identities to hide their life aggressions, which is relevant also because the male and female people I never had communications with, all exceptions recorded having been involved. Like there's a female prosecutor who I had a cooking class with, and she's associated with Jonathan Maiano, also involved with sequence shifts with other prosecutors with that same court and other people associated with that same court and tied to them and to their family members. So they have the sense and sensibilities of each branch of government, criminally foreign influenced and delusions raw. So they have that, incapable of defending that and of affording proper treatments by what Jane Austen might have been saying with a phrase, sense and sensibilities, for example, and or a title. So, for example, we're going to examine how the sciences individually grouped in together have roles with people all along a route in Wethersfield that goes towards Central Connecticut State University and on-off Paul Manitou Ford Drive, involved with remote uses of CNN and of Fox Connecticut News, and of national news in relationship to the uses of the World Trade Center, of the Pentagon, and of Washington D.C. remotely leading up to the World Trade Center and since. So you have to have means to counter people who are crimes against us. We also have to counter how the people. I've been in my house not going anywhere for 3 months. So I had no access to drugs, and I'm not into drugs and things like that. They're putting fake drugs on because they do mental evaluations of people. Where and how interbranch have roles with investigators, and vetting identity with the Dillon family, and with the military families, and Wethersfield Police and police chiefs retired and standing, involved with predicate acts with kids on my street, illusions that are relevant to their roles on campuses. This is also where and how they make victims, where you have to use other people's names because they're using and having used ours, even if behind our back we don't know. In ways relevant to where and how the interbranch have been using their locations to fabricate audio and video to hide remote uses of themselves through time. So there are Mendez police that have been involved with all kinds of child cases and with the Dillon family. And they've been involved with fabricating audio and video. They've been involved with foreign and domestic medical families and people on and off both mobile gas stations on the South State Highway. One is on the end of Town Line Drive now. That sought me out before I ever knew to record, confess, demonstrate they were involved with investigators, vetting identity. That was years ago. Now those are people relevant now to what they're doing to what they're doing with the phones where they pretended in the past they didn't understand what I talked about when I spoke about specific acts. And instead they fabricated sequences and they fabricated audio and video with foreign families and interbranch families, all tied to the same house. And now Wethersfield police have officers forging and switching names with the same house forced roles that they don't even know about it. Those same people that they in other words, this was through time. This is not legitimate. So, and we have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes that are leaving out and having left out exceptions. They're supposed to follow mandated law. So I'm not only, I'm reporting the courts themselves, their employees and their family members. I'm aware of that. And now when people make confessions, I'm not reporting if they're telling the truth or not, and that's not the point. The point is how the investigations, investigators, and vetting identities were self-recorded and involved with predicate acts and with predicate acts delivery and with predicate acts delivery system method that has all those other methods bound and uses of it, which are also recorded. For example, with the Ayala family on off the fire departments of Hartford and of Wethersfield and intercities involved with a Kerr family per them and a former Mayor Gold. And that was in sequence inseparable from the people that didn't go to that went to my grammar school. They were in my grade, but they weren't in my class. They're involved with sequence shifts and with the O'Brien family and with confessions tied to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain when I was in grammar school. That didn't make sense, but I understand what they were talking about now and why they were affected to make those confessions. So, there are people I don't know at all, and there are people that I only know. I don't know at all, but only I do know them in context. Like the people I don't know at all, Joshua Julian. I only know his name through other people's confession. He recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved on and off the principal campus. Well, also they have the neighbors of and the family members of the principals as victims. But if you try to speak about it, they're going to become victim predators. That's why you have to speak about that. You have to allow people to speak about the acts. So Mr. I forgot Mr. Murphy. There's an Erin Murphy. I don't know her. I heard it was Erin Gallucci. You know, that was the name on Facebook I saw. And Gallucci, I don't know them. And it was brought up by people tied Gallucci family with the educational department at Central Connecticut State University, and like a Joe Aiello, also by a Joe DeMoro and a Ray Collo. When I was a kid, real quick, we stopped by his house. They confessed and recorded he was involved with them, as victims, involved as where they were painting everyone as victim predators, and they engineered people to sequence shift roles and styles with the interbranch and foreign fabricating audio and video. Now it's also relevant how they have the foreign involved with influences over them in relationship to the specific things they ask them questions about through time. This is also relevant to the Wethersfield police threatening me not to make a police report offensively by threatening what is also recorded how they fabricate audio and video on their campus through time. There were also people when they were kids recorded, confessed, and demonstrated being and having been influenced to falsify police reports and databases involved, whether interbranch, fabricating audio and video into databases in conjunction and collusion with that on-off campuses also doing the same thing in parallel, stacking connected illusions that were then relevant and are relevant to how they were exploited in the Washington, D.C. and World Trade Center context and the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center right before it. There's also a Scalora family that is involved with identity thefts and frauds when I was a kid. And then with people that are tied to Central Connecticut State University. And they also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed to me and people tied to me that is true. Now, Wethersfield Police also fabricated audio and video with them. They've been forging names, switching names with them. They also have roles with the people on the child offender registry that I caught with worse involved with them. Now, this is also people that are with a whole bunch of ties to houses on 2 Rod Highway that are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, having been involved with investigations, investigators, and identities of the law with sequence shifts, identity thefts, and frauds, and roles with drugs, crimes, and medicines crimes with doctors and police forms relevant, like a Dillon family, involved with people also on off, like, identity ground locations like the community center, houses near there, involved also with the fire departments and with the medical locations with my name in the background that I don't know at all, and people who pretended other by having me walk there, they could take a picture apparently, like a Paul Abted. I never had anything to do with Paul Abted. Now, he has his sister and his family is involved with Jody Pierce, for example, involved with some 2 DeMoro families that are involved with state police and with the training of state police intercities and with locations like near water and on off New Britain Superior Court. I mean, on off the court rules, their court's predicate acts. In other words, these are people I don't know. And they were recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved with investigators that are also used preemptively, not for the reasons they're pretending, to hide lie progressions, because it makes it look like they're around, in other words, around the people that they are around and or not around them for reasons simultaneously other. So you have to understand what all the actually recorded uses of criminalization natures of positive and of negative by people interbranch and used remotely too, in collusion with. No, they have roles with discrediting good logic outside, good intelligence. That's why we have lack of intelligence regarding what really is the problem. It's not money. It's not money. Money's recorded self-valued roles with acceptations of where and how it's blamed on money. Why areas have shootings and less capable students. That is an engineered incapabilities. Those are engineered incapabilities. Those are simultaneously self-valued incapabilities by the only people allowed to counter such, exploiting such other for a whole bunch of juxtaposed motivations, nature's needs of evil. We also have how black and white families associated with psychology and with prisons also involved with psychology, and with courts, how they're involved with locations crimes and online, identity theft frauds, fabricating audio and video, fabricating medical information into databases, and exploitations of that, and their styles recorded, like forging names, switching names private in conjunction with the interbranch, in conjunction with their patients and criminals also. Further, people on off Wethersfield Town Library are involved, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with police chiefs through time, and people associated with them, involved, and people associated with answering the phones at the police, involved with fabricating audio and video, sequence shifts, roles with false police reports, narratives, and other natures of predicate acts like mail crime, wire crime. There are also officers that forge names, switch names, and fake conversations with me, fabricated audio and video with a Lethe family, also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, further involved with predicate acts with dozens of people from the Britain Superior Court, with prosecutors, male and female, retired and standing, with judges retired and standing from that court, all positions with the court used remotely, having been used remotely. So you have to give me someone to respond to, and pick a specific act and sequence, and then we'll take it from there. Have them pick one name and sequence. Also, respond for the 2 Mendez police, forging names, switching names. I never had a class with them. Know how they use people from other classes in collusion with people from private schools with the databases too, because these are also people involved with home school people. And we're going to deal with how they have Nothing legitimate, especially undercover, plain clothes, whatever like that. None of their information is integrity.